There was a bit of a scare this week after a report from Sean Ross Sapp on Fightful Select that a WWE talent reached out and told him that they believed that Vince McMahon was back in WWE Creative. And he said that he could not get this confirmed at all. Later on, sources, he said, within WWE that would be in the position to know about this sort of thing told him that these fears are unfounded and that Triple H has been very open that Vince does have input, but he has been adamant that he alone has final say on all creative decisions. I'm questioning that after this Brock Lesnar Omos shit, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Wade Keller of the Pro Wrestling Torch later backed up Fightful's report, said that he was flat out told that Vince McMahon is not back in WWE Creative. So that caused a little bit of a stir this week and got people talking. Triple H admitting that Vince still chimes in with his thoughts, as he said, several weeks ago, that opened the floodgates, rightfully, for people to think that he was slowly creeping back into creative. Him forcing his way back into the company in the way that he did only made people more paranoid. And it's perfectly logical to assume that a man who has spent his entire life doing one job would have a very difficult time letting go of that job, especially if he never really intended to give up that job in the first place, and he only did so because he felt he was given bad advice. I'm sure he's watched some of the changes that Triple H has made and the people that he fired that Triple H has brought back, and it probably makes him sick. But do I think that he's back in creative? Not yet. Not yet. There's a very good chance that it will still happen. All of this doesn't matter, though. People are losing sight of the one very important fact here. All of this doesn't matter until the company is sold and we see who buys it. If it's the Saudis, I fully expect that Vince McMahon is going to stay on as part of the company, and there's no way he doesn't take on a bigger role in creative if that happens. Maybe he gets bought by a company that doesn't want him there, but then I don't think that he'll sell to those people. It's the same question that I asked when he first stepped down last summer. What is this man going to do with himself? He doesn't know anything else. I used to joke, well, how's Vince McMahon spending his free time now that he's gone? We found out how he was spending his free time, trying to get back in. And it worked. Between him forcing his way back onto the board and this cloud hanging over everyone's heads of a sale, and not knowing what changes might come from that, every talent on that roster has a right to be worried. Not just this one person who talked to Fightful. I'm sure it's a lot more than just one person. Even Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee this week tweeted that he's not sure he would even want to still work for WWE under new ownership. It all depends on who the new owners are. If Brett Favre buys WWE, then we know that Pat McAfee won't be working there anymore. So the talent has a right to be concerned. Look, Triple H is not infallible. He is not perfect. There are still issues, very real issues with the WWE product. Some things feel the same as they did a year ago. A lot of things don't. But there are still issues with the product, especially on the undercard, and how they are going to replace, for example, the Bloodline. When that story is finally over, what does he have planned, if anything, to take its place? Because without that, WWE television would be a hell of a lot more boring than it is right now. In that same respect, he's made some changes for the better that have stuck. One of the biggest things to me is how strong the secondary titles have become in this company. We just had the United States Championship defended in the Elimination Chamber for the first time, and it may well be defended at WrestleMania against John Cena. Right? The run that Gunther has been on with that Intercontinental title, he's been the best thing to happen to that belt in years. Getting rid of the horrid 24/7 stuff, junking the tired Raw versus SmackDown formula for Survivor Series. He salvaged the Judgment Day, which I didn't think was possible. It looked like it was on its way to the scrap heap last year. On the other side of the coin, for a guy who was running NXT all those years when they had those great women's rosters, I think the women's division on both shows and what they've been doing with the women has largely not been very good at all. They've actually taken a few steps backwards. So this is going to be his first WrestleMania. If we are to believe that Vince really will be hands-off for the first time with a WrestleMania, which, again, I have my doubts about, but, he's got his first WrestleMania coming up, Triple H does, so we'll see what he does with that. But this all feels meaningless. to me to even worry about until the sales situation is resolved. And if Nick Khan is to be believed, that could happen within the next 60 days. We'll see if Vince gets his $9 billion. If I sold my company for $9 billion, I don't know. I wouldn't want to spend my twilight years worried about who Flop Dollar was wrestling on SmackDown next Friday, but that's me.